My passion really is producing and writing songs for artists. And I found I was spending a lot of time working in studios on other people's projects. So start of 2020, I was like, right, this is the year. Like when my residency finishes, I'm gonna, I'm not going to work in the studios as much. And then the pandemic happened and it was like, nobody is working in any studios.
Totally.
So yeah, I've really tried to shift more into just producing. And obviously, I mean, the roles are all merged nowadays anyway. And
totally,
often
I don't get songwriting credit for the songs I produce and give a little...
Yeah. It's kind of, especially with independent artists, you're expected to be an all-in-one engineer, producer, songwriter person.
Totally.
And so, yeah, I've just really, I guess that's what the pandemic has forced me to do, is like put all my energy and focus into producing songs and writing great songs. And I guess specializing, I still do engineering, but more in a kind of vocal producer sense. So I will just record people's vocals and mix them, and it's all me. I'm not kind of dependent on income from other studios because
you've just gone full freelance.
Yeah.
Basically.
So in a way that I guess that was good, that it forced me to do that and take that leap.
Yeah. So how do you find these artists to work with? Like how do they come to you?
Mostly, so I don't have a manager or a publisher. I'm just me. So I have a website and people contact me through that, but also it's mostly through word of mouth, and people recommended me from other projects, or people maybe get in touch and say that they liked what I did on XYZ song. And I think I also seem to get a lot of work from female artists that are seeking to work with a female producer, which happens so much that I kind of almost roll my eyes out sometimes, because I'm like, another one. Because I would really prefer if people approach me because they love work that I've done previously. But I can also completely understand as an artist, if you're frustrated by always working with only male producers, I can completely understand why you would seek that out. So it's a double-edged sword there, but
yeah. Well, it's a niche, right?
Yeah.
It keeps you in business.
Yeah, totally.
And, no, I think it's so important because I think, I think women often feel more comfortable with other women, and it's such a male-dominated industry. So I think it makes total sense.
Yeah.
That it's a boon for you and for them.
Yeah, it's definitely a bonus. And I hope it becomes less of a thing as, hopefully the gender balance improves, and it becomes less of a thing that I kind of wait for the point in every session that I have where someone says, "Oh, I've never worked with a female producer before." And I'm okay, we've said that now, cool. Let's move on.
But more and more every year, I think the visibility is an important thing.
And that's so important. Yeah. And I think it's actually a great time to be a woman in music, because I feel like there is change happening.
Yeah. And also just because we're doing everything on like a small, that obviously has a lot of downsides because we're all kind of like, doing it by ourselves in like bedroom studios or whatever. But there's no like boys club that, is maybe keeping people out. It's kind of like everyone's just doing it. Everyone has access to the same technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
The same, resources to, get better, all that kind of stuff. It's available everywhere. So it's
totally, yeah.
It's not like, the old crew will decide who joins next or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So are you more a producer, more a songwriter, a bit of both? Like, what's more important to you?
I think songwriting is really my first love, and I came to production through songwriting. I started producing because I was kind of frustrated with having to depend on other people to like create what I'm hearing in my head. And so I just started doing that out of necessity, really. But production has also now become such a huge passion of mine. But I do see them pretty interdependently. Often I will be in a writing session, but I'll be producing as we write. Or if I am producing something that I haven't written, I still kind of look at the song first and see what I can produce in a way that serves the song, rather than, I'm not usually someone that creates a track independently of a top line.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Starts from the song itself.
Yeah.
Do you often write on the piano, or does it start in the DAW? Like, how
It
does it begin for you?
usually depends on the artist, like, and everyone works completely differently, but sometimes it will just be sitting with an instrument and working out a song first, and sometimes it will be kind of producing as you go. I mean, I know some artists kind of prefer to get a vibe off what you're producing before they start creating. So I don't have a set way of working either way. But yeah, I mean, if it's just me, and actually I really stopped writing solo for a long time, but it's something I kind of picked up again in lockdown. And if it's just me, I will just kind of bleed into a piano and sing about my feelings. But I think that is a really important practice that I've picked up again, and I think it actually improves how I am in other sessions if I can kind of write independently of other people as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's how this all started for me. So I relate to that. You know, production began for me when I needed to scratch that, that itch that I had, and writing songs, and just kind of led into the DAW and led into production. So I totally get that. Like, I guess, what's the first thing you do when you hear an artist's song? Like, what do you do first?
I'll usually listen to the song a few times from top to bottom and kind of section it out in my head of okay, here's the chorus, here's the verse, here's what dynamics you'd need here. And again, every artist is different. Some have really specific ideas and a vision of what they want their music to sound like. So if that's their preferred way of working, I will take their references and kind of explore different sounds that they like with them. And then some artists, and I really love this when this happens, it's a bit rarer I find, but they just want you to run with it, whatever's in your head, just go for it and come back to me with a track.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on, right?
Yeah, but I kind of love that. I usually just sit with it for hours and just try out different stuff. And I find I usually come up with more original things that way, because it's the creativity is kind of on you rather than trying to create what is in someone else's head. So again, I find that I'm always kind of quite flexible with the way that I work, because it's always very artist focused and it's up to what they need and what they want.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned to me that you're kind of very involved in artist development and helping artists find their voice, get better, get picked up with maybe getting deals. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think artist development is definitely a passion of mine. It can be a long slog, especially if you're working with an artist from the very beginning and helping them find who they are and what their sound is. I find that often with artists that you are developing, you will write 50 to 100 songs, and by the end of the project, you'll have one or two songs on their EP. So it's definitely...
Oh my God.
No joke.
That's a filter.
But it definitely has to be a labor of love. And I think I am picking and choosing my artist development projects more these days. But I just really love, finding an artist that is just so talented and kind of taking it back to what they want to sound like and helping them realize who they are as an artist. And I think it always comes back to the songs as well. It obviously sounds like a lot to write 50 songs with one artist, but you always find the best songs by doing that. And you'll have a great catalogue of songs that you can hopefully use for other things too. But yeah, from the artists that I work with, kind of from the ground up, I think the ones that have seen the most success are the ones that have written the most and kind of held fire before putting stuff out. And I know that's hard to do, but by the time that they get to releasing, they have 2 EPs worth of songs that they're really proud of, and then they can just kind of roll out those releases.
So they store it on the side for a while.
Yeah.
and then have a big launch.
But then on the flip side, that can be so much pressure as well to put on an artist, because if you've been working on something for, over a year and then that's what it's all resting on, then it's really tough. I find that artists like a year after a song is written, they're just completely burnt out of it. And they're like, I'm in a new place now. Yeah, that's the thing. You have to still be in love with it as well. But then I also work with people that we like write a tune and then 3 months later it's released. Like everyone works differently, but I think some artists need that time to grow into themselves. And I'm so glad I'm not an artist. Like, it's so much pressure. And
yeah,
if I thought about the songs that I started writing at the beginning of my career, they were so bad. And I feel like you just need to kind of work through that and keep creating, and until you finally get to a point where you actually fall in love with what you're creating and you want to hear it and you want other people to hear it.
Yeah, I feel like I think you hit the nail on the head there with just the quantity leads to quality. Like the more it's like anything in life, right? It's like producing. Like your first production is not going to be good no matter what. So like finish it, move on, and eventually one of them is going to be really good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so let's jump a little bit into production. Like, do you have any, I guess, tried and true techniques, anything that like comes to mind, like when you want to start producing? Like, talk to me a little bit more about your process.
I guess because I am a piano person, I'll usually start with chords. Like I'll find a chord sequence that I'm feeling, or I'll just kind of play around. And if I'm with an artist, then I try and get something from the chords that they're liking or they're inspired by. That's usually where I start. And then I kind of build up the track from that. So I'll try those chords on a different instrument. I'll try it on different synth sounds, and then just start kind of layering that up. And then I think a lot of people starting out with production probably find drums the hardest part, unless you are a drummer. But I feel like now I kind of know instinctively what kind of groove to go to, and I'll just kind of drop stuff into either a sampler or actually just with audio files.
Manually, just
get in there. Definitely like the longest way to do it. But another thing I use is kind of Groove Machines, kind of what's it called? Addictive Drums has a lot of like preset grooves that are really good, and so I'll just kind of find one of those that works. Often the sounds won't work, but the groove will, and then I'll drop in different drum sounds to that groove and then lock everything to that. And then I'm always kind of looking for the dynamics. So, what in the verse can we keep kind of muted and understated, and what can we build towards, and what in the chorus can be like explosive and exciting. And that kind of shift in dynamics that in a pop song is so important, and you need to keep everyone interested for every second.
Right. Totally. Yeah. With pops, like we don't have intros anymore, right? We just jump right into it. Transitions.
Yeah. And I guess it's always about like, and sometimes it can take quite a while in a session, but finding something that is just sonically interesting, that makes people go, oh, that's cool. That's different. Or
yeah, that was something I noticed when I was listening to the productions that you were a part of. There were tons of like little cool ear candy stuff, like the little bleeps and bloops and all kinds of stuff like that were really neat. And I guess we'll hear some of that in the sauce segment later. But yeah, like how do you find those sounds? Like, or how do you create them?
I love finding Foley sounds. So I'll often layer those into the drums, like on top of snares, or even just as like a separate little kind of effects thing. And then I'll also sometimes just I love making vocal textures, so I'll sing stuff in and kind of play with that, or run it through a vocoder. Or I think it's all about creating like a bed of textures that kind of sits beneath the vocal but doesn't distract from it. And just there can never be a dull moment in a pop song. It has to just be like one thing after the other that keeps.
Are you constantly listening to like top 40 to get inspired for sounds? Because your songs are super modern sounding. Like you're like what's inspiring you?
Oh, thank you.
Like, listening wise.
Yeah, I do try to listen to. I don't like listen to the radio. But I'll always listen to like the New Music Fridays or Fresh